Yes, good day, class. Today, in this lesson, I'm going to be presenting to you human impact to the environment, the atmosphere, and climate change. I'm sure that is one of the concern that, or one of the issues that is dealt with at a continental or at a global level, the impact of human activities on the environment. So, but in this context, I would wish that you understand and you relate very practically so to practices that are happening and human activities that are taking place in our neighborhoods and so forth. So the atmosphere is made up of nitrogen, oxygen, and other gases, which include greenhouse gases, uh, such as carbon dioxide and methane. I'm sure that you understand that carbon dioxide is produced from various places, including even the human breathing, or when people breathe out, they release gas, carbon dioxide gas, and then the methane is also the gas that is produced from decomposing dumping sites where matter is decomposing, methane is produced there. And then the greenhouse gases absorb infrared long wave radiation. The long wave radiation that we are talking about is the long wave radiation emitted from the earth. As to say, when the sun hits the earth, the when the incoming solar radiation hits the earth reflects back or send back the radiation, the long wave radiation that is being, like to say, the heat energy that is emitted from the earth, and then it prevents it from escaping back into the atmosphere. That is the issue to do with the greenhouse gases. This is known as the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is the capacity of the greenhouse gases to insulate or to cover the earth. To cover the earth that it is. The greenhouse gases prevents the emitted long wave radiation from the earth to be well are emitted back into the atmosphere. So when the heat is released from the earth, it does not go far up in the atmosphere because of the greenhouse gases that are covering it or that are preventing it from what from that uh uprise. Hence we call that greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse effect is important in keeping the earth warm so that it can sustain life. To say that the earth is just generally warm, it is because that the there is a moderate optimum temperature when all things are fine. The greenhouse gas, the greenhouse effect, it actually pre- uh, prevents the earth from just being too cold by avoiding the loss of heat from the earth. That's what happens there. An increase in the concentration of greenhouse gases leads to enhanced greenhouse effect. So the amount of greenhouse gases must just be regulated anyway. They shouldn't be too high or extreme. When they become too much, hence they can cause problems that would cause problems also on the earth in terms of the flora and fauna, plants and animals on earth. They can as well be affected because of the what? Because of the effect of the what? Of the excessive accumulation of the greenhouse gases. So what happens there is that there may be a significant rise in the average temperatures as a result of excessive amount of greenhouse gases. If the greenhouse gases excessively accumulate, there will be an increase in the average temperatures of the surface of the earth over a period of time, which we call global warming. So global warming is actually caused as a result of uh, extreme temperature increases that are caused because of accumulation of gases, which we call the greenhouse effect, which at the end of the day would result in what? In global temperature increases, that the temperatures will increase. In some practical areas, we can talk about the melting of icelands or some places that has been having uh, ices. Now those ice they start to melt as a result of increased temperatures. Hence, we can have problems that might arise there. So global warming is one of the key effects or a key problem that is to be worried about when we are referring or when we are to discuss the effect of greenhouse gases, enhanced greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So effects of global warming includes desertification. Uh, Desertification is a problem also on its own, which I'm sure that you must understand that when desertification takes place, it actually causes loss of vegetation. It causes loss of life. We talk about droughts where there is extreme periods of no rainfall. We can also have problems of flooding, which can also arise as a problem as a result of global warming. And then desertification, in its definition, is the process through which arid and semi-arid land is transformed into a desert. There are areas which are arid, as to say that they just have low rainfall totals, and others which have got minimal or averagely low rainfall totals. So those places they are not dry, totally dry, but they've got some compromised or erratic rainfall totals, which would result or which can now be turned into desert because of global warming, to say that they become even worse. So deforestation is the cutting down of trees and removal of vegetation from the land, which is obviously a human activity on its own. People, they cut down trees when it is excessively done, or when excessive cutting down of trees is practiced or is done, that removal of vegetation from the land would cause also a decrease in the amount of carbon dioxide taken up by the plants during photosynthesis. So as you can see, there is a natural balance which is supposed to take place with regard to the exchange or gaseous exchange that takes place between animals and plants. So in instances where trees are excessively cut down, would have a situation where excessive or too much carbon dioxide is left in the atmosphere because photosynthesis has been eliminated. This increases the amount of carbon dioxide available in the atmosphere, which I'm saying from the previous explanation that it causes what? It increases amount of carbon dioxide, which we are saying again that it would cause global warming. And then carbon footprint. What is carbon footprint? Carbon footprint is just a common term that is mostly used in science again, which most learners you must know is the measure of the total amount of carbon dioxide, a measure of the total amount of carbon dioxide emissions of a person, population, or a company per given period of time, which is usually a year. The total amount of carbon dioxide emitted by a person, by a company, by a factory over a period of year, it is accounted to as carbon footprint. That is carbon footprint. Ways of reducing our carbon or ways of reducing carbon footprint include reuse and recycling. This can also just say that reuse and recycling is just reducing on the effect of decomposition and also the waste disposal or waste management. Driving less, that is just reducing the number of cars. This is to do with reducing the number of vehicles. When number of vehicles is reduced or has been reduced, it also means that the carbon emission is also reduced as well. And then ways of we are saying less, and then insulating walls and buildings and building energy efficient homes is also another method. And then using alternative energy sources. These are just environmentally sources, environmentally environmentally friendly environmentally friendly energy sources, environmentally friendly energy sources, energy resources. These also can be able to ensure that the amount of carbon emissions in the atmosphere is minimized, as well as reforestation. Reforestation is just planting of trees planting of vegetation in areas that once have vegetation and has been cut off, in areas that have been cleared off the vegetation. That is what that is re. Re means to say that there is an action of replanting. There is an action of replanting that is taking place in this regard. So planting of vegetation in areas that once have vegetation but it was cut off is called reforestation. And then afforestation is totally starting to plant vegetation where there was no vegetation before, is what we call afforestation. And then we can also talk about ozone layer, the ozone layer, which is a layer of gas that is located around the earth. The ozone layer is a layer of gas that is located around the earth. The ozone layer absorbs the harmful ultraviolet rays. It absorbs the absorbs the harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun before it can reach the earth. In other words, what you should understand is that the sun is above the ozone layer. So the ozone layer actually helps to cover the earth, preventing the intensity of the sun or of the solar radiation on when it reaches the earth, to say that the ozone layer, it minimizes or it reduces the intensity of the sun when it is to reach the earth. Hence, therefore, it avoids this problem of also global warming. It avoids these problems of cancerous infections, which are diseases that are caused by extreme temperature rises. So the damage of the ozone layer is caused mainly by chemicals that are called chlorofluorocarbons. The CFS carbons. These are just like carbon gases that are in the atmosphere that are released from refrigerators. We can talk about aerosol sprays and fast food packaging, where we are saying these chlorofluorocarbons are those carbon gases which can also cause the depletion of ozone layer or can cause damaging of the ozone layer. So depletion of ozone layer leads to a thinning of the ozone layer, as to say that the ozone layer becomes smaller, it diminishes, it becomes so thin. So the effect of ozone layer depletion includes significant increase in the number of skin cancer cases, which I already mentioned, that when ozone layer is depleted or is affected, is thinning off, it can lead to increased skin cancer diseases and permanent damage to eyes, which are also problems that can arise as a problem as a result of extreme uh, uh, heat waves that we can talk about. Even furthermore, we can even talk about problems that such as runoff fires, which are just natural fires which are caused by by extreme temperatures, which we call heat outburst or heat waves that would cause such problems such as what called destruction of vegetation and animals habitats destroyed and so forth. So human impact to the environment, there are quite a lot. We can also even talk about urbanization, which is also another factor where people build houses or build settlements in areas which were just natural habitats. And in that regard, it is affecting the natural ecosystems. We can also talk about either the digging of wells and the construction of dams. Those are other human impact or human activities on the environment, which would also result in depletion of underground water and other problems that would arise. So in this case, I just gave you some, but I gave you some of the factors that are there. Even agricultural activities, farming itself, poor farming practices, stream bank cultivation, monoculture, all those are examples that we can talk about. And even To mention more, also the use of herbicides, agricultural herbicides, which are used in controlling of weeds and stuff, even chemicals, insecticides. There are also human impact to the environment, which at a long run also would affect uh, or cause uh, uh, decrease in biodiversity, which is quite an outstanding cry with regard to our natural ecosystems. Let's just look on the availability, water availability, uh, that is influenced by many factors. Availability of water is influenced by quite a number of factors. There are quite a number of factors that affect or that influence availability of water. We are seeing one, construction of dams may play a major role in increasing the quantity of water stored and made available for later use. So availability of water is affected by what? By dams construction, which can increase the quantity of water that is collected in terms of the reservoirs, and then destruction of wetlands. A wetland is land that is saturated, as to say, filled up with by surface or groundwater. There is excess groundwater or surface water, and then wetlands should not be destroyed because they influence both the availability and quality of water. So we are saying these are called also natural feeds into our water tables. So when wetlands are destroyed, it also affects the availability and also quality of water. Availability, as to say, water tables can go far deep, then it becomes a problem also in terms of natural provisioning or natural supply of water. And then exotic plants, in terms of availability of water, these are trees. Non-indigenous trees are called exotic plants, trees and plants that are not naturally available or naturally or biologically growing naturally on their own. So exotic plants, e.g. pine, I'm sure that you know these ones that we use for making timber and so forth, the wattle trees, etc. We can even talk about the fruit trees that we have, such as mangoes, apples, and uh, what you call banana or whatsoever. Those are called exotic trees that are imported from other ecosystem and established in a new habitat. These are trees that are not naturally growing. As you can see, they are imported from other ecosystems. Plantations of exotic plants use large volumes of water and reducing reducing the water table. That is quite true. That volumes of water is consumed, as in more than unlike indigenous trees. So exotic trees, they are a concern when we refer or when we are to look at availability of water. And then water wastage. Large amount of water used for irrigation is lost. That is quite honest and true. The amount of water that is used or a lot of water used in irrigation is lost due to poor farming practice. uh, and then availability is also affected by wastage of water through leaking taps in our households. I'm sure that we are quite aware of how much times do we see water leaking, and after how long is it being controlled. Toilets and other fault pipelines, which we are saying that they are quite examples of what water wastage is again. Poor farming practices such as overgrazing, as to say the land is vegetation is overconsumed, overeaten by animals or domestic animals, which we can say in this case, you can talk about exceeding carrying capacity. Overgrazing, we are saying exceeding carrying capacity, carrying capacity, as to say that it becomes a problem, as to say the amount or the number of animals that a given piece of land can sustain has been overpassed or has been exceeded. Hence, the vegetation and grass and everything else is destroyed. Exceeding carrying capacity destroys vegetation, and eventually and also water supply. That is one other problem that we should understand. So on land that is eroded, water runs off rapidly rather than soaking into the ground and then thus is wasted. We talk about the elimination of underground water as a result of runoff waters that we are talking about. Instead of infiltrating into the ground, the water drains off the land, which is quite a problematic condition. Drought and floods also affecting water availability, where we have got periods of drought, water availability decreases. Times when there is no water, no rainfall, uh, no rainfall over a period of time, over a long period of time, no rainfall over a long period of time, over a long period of time, we call that drought. We call that drought class. So what is happening is no rainfall over a long period of time, it can be a problem, which also decreases availability of water. It decreases availability of water. And then water used from dams during the drought period cannot be easily replaced. That is quite true, that we cannot easily replace the water that has been used during periods of drought. That water it has accumulated over sometimes 10 years, and then it is used over 3 or 5 months. But those volumes of water in terms of their accumulation or their storages and stuff, it takes more years than the number of years that it is being used. Hence, if periods of drought is persistently heat is persistently affected regions and places, would have problems in terms of availability of water. Natural vegetation can hold back water from floods. That is also true. And then if the natural vegetation is removed, waters are lost, which we are saying the flood waters must what? It must infiltrate, it must infiltration, sinking in the ground, sinking into the ground to aid groundwater. So if groundwater is not there, hence it becomes a problem. And then boreholes and effects of aquifers, which we are saying constant use of boreholes eventually leads to drying up of aquifers. Drilling in of boreholes, when boreholes are drilled, we are saying water tables are affected. Water tables are affected because in terms of aquifers that are being referred to here, we are talking about temporary water tables. These are temporary water tables. Temporary These are temporary water tables, temporary water tables, which of course you can see that temporary water table, whereby to say that there is just an underground rock that can accumulate or that can store water, but now it cannot have that much water. That is an aquifer. And then if ever the bore or wells are drilled into those temporary water tables, they dry up. Temporary water tables are drying up. So that is one other thing that we must just take note of and look into in regard to water availability. And then obviously we therefore have decreasing water availability in the future. If such happens, we would have also problems with water provision in the future, drying up and so forth. So class, thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Wish you all the best, and just keep connected. We are going to have everything covered in term 3, and look forward for next post. Have a beautiful day.